the day I became governor of New Jersey. And it's amazing, it ran on time. I remember hearing David Sampson introduce the Chief Justice to administer the oath. I looked down at my watch and it was 30 seconds to noon. And I said, man, we must know what we're doing. We actually got this to run on time. And so I thank you for all being here today. I said in my State of the State, and said prior to that, in a couple of appearances at the end of last year, that 2011 in New Jersey is the year of education reform. And after you are done watching this movie today, if you don't understand why already, you will understand why acutely after watching this movie. Been having an interesting dialogue this morning with by Twitter with members of the teachers union, and one of the things that they said to me was, will you want to radically change a tenure system that's working for kids in Chatham and Mendham? And I said, well, that might be true, but I care as much about the kids in Newark and Trenton and Camden and Patterson and Asbury Park. I care about the kids in Chatham and Mendham. The kids in Chatham and Mendham's dreams are no more important, no greater, no more precious than the dreams of the children in Newark and Jersey City and Asbury Park and Patterson and Trenton and Camden. Their parents' dreams for them are no less grand than the dreams of the parents in Chatham and Mendham. And our commitment to them should no longer be one where we assuage our guilt for our failure by just throwing more money at them. Well, you can't blame us for the failure. We spend $25,000 per year in Newark, so you can't blame us. We're trying. Baloney. Well, that's the easy part. Spending the money is the easy part. At the State of the State, Michelle Reed joined me that day. She articulates as well or better than anybody in America what this is really about, and you'll hear her talk about it in this film. We have a system today that caters to the feelings of adults rather than the needs of students. We don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. We don't want to punish failure. We've been talked into the idea that in this profession, and this profession only, that it is too complex to reward success. We don't understand it. That was coming to me today on Twitter as well. Governor, you have no background. You don't understand what makes a good teacher. I don't know. I look out of this room and I see what I believe to be a lot of parents. Let me ask you a question. When your children were in elementary school, middle school, high school, did you have a hard time figuring out who the good teachers were? No. Not for a minute. Not for a minute. You went to back to school night, you had your inkling of whether you had a good teacher or a not so good one. Your children came home after the first few weeks and you had an inkling from listening to them whether they had a good one or a bad one. You saw the report cards, you saw their test scores, you had a good idea whether there was a good teacher or a bad teacher at the front of the room. Here's the thing. I spent the last year taking on the teachers union, frontally, directly, bluntly, and I make no apologies for it. But it has been confused intentionally by the union as being an assault on teachers. So let me be clear again to all of you who are about to see this movie. I think that the good and great teachers in our system, that we should reward them, that we should pay them more than they're making now, that we should carry them on our shoulders to school every day for what they're doing to train the next generation of great New Jerseyans. But by the same token, the failed teacher must be shown the door. The bad school must be closed and we must start over. Because I will tell you, for any of us and our children, if they have a bad teacher at the front of that classroom, a failing teacher, for the second grade, that failure sticks with them forever. School is like a stairmaster, right? One step builds on the next, builds on the next, builds on the next, builds on the next. You keep climbing. You miss and trip on one of those stairs. You can't keep climbing. You know what happens. It may not look like I've ever been on a stairmaster, but I actually have. When you, not a lot, but I've been on them. You trip, your whole orientation changes, right? You know, when you're hitting each step perfectly, it's hard, but you know what you're doing. And all you're concerned about is getting to the next step and getting to the next step. When you trip, all you care about is saving yourself. Grasping on for something and holding on. You're not worried about advancing anymore. You're just worried about not getting dragged down. When we have children miss a step because we're unwilling to fight for them, because we're unwilling to look at the bad teacher in the eye and say, you're fired. Find another profession. When we're unwilling to do those things, not only are we cowards, but we're immoral. We are immoral. We are cheating that child of his or her future. I know this is hard. Believe me, I've spent a year in Trenton now. Nothing's easy. I know it's going to be hard. But there's nothing for the future of our state that's more important. There's nothing for the future of our country that's more important. We all love teachers. We all honor their work. The most amazing thing that got sent to me on this back and forth was, they said, you criticize all public sector workers. I said, no, I don't. I said, I honor the bravery of police officers. I praise the public workers who help clear the roads of snow. And I praise good teachers. And the response was, real cute, just good teachers. Why just good ones? That was the response. And I said, well, I got to tell you the truth. I don't think it's my job to praise anybody who does something bad. If you do it poorly, I'm not praising you. I don't care whether you're the guy driving the snowplow, whether you're the cop on the beat, or whether you're the teacher in the front of the classroom. We got to break out of this political correctness, everybody. You know what the most amazing thing to me in the last year is? That I've gotten all this attention for saying this. Everyone in this room knows it's true. You know it's true. You know that the biggest difference in a child's life in school is a good teacher at the front of that classroom. And that nothing makes a greater difference. I've seen it with my children, and I know you've seen it with yours. And so now it's up to us. You know, adults on this earth are put here in part to protect the children. And we want to have our own lives and our own happiness, but once we have a child, our job is to nurture, protect, empower that child. We are failing. And we're failing miserably. I acknowledge the good things that are happening in our public schools. They happen every day. I acknowledge them. I honor them. But just having some do well does not make us a great state. It doesn't even make us a good one. We should be judged by how we care for those who need us the most. Those children need us now. They need us to put aside partisanship. They need us to make the changes that need to be done to improve the system. This movie is going to put out in stark detail for you how America is failing. America is failing. And it's not a partisan issue. I defy you to take transcripts of talks I've given on education, take all the names off of it, take transcripts of President Obama and what he said about education, take all the names off it, switch them around, I'll give them to you. You're not going to be able to tell the difference between what conservative Republican Christie and liberal Democrat Barack Obama are saying about education. That means there is a moment here for us to seize on. This isn't about politics. This isn't about partisanship. This is about self-interest versus the public interest. That's what it's about. Are we going to continue to cater to the self-interest of the status quo, or are we going to put that aside and say, reward great people, reward achievers, punish those who fail? We should accept nothing less for our children. Nothing less. And all the rest of it is theater, is garbage. I was at the Robert Treat Academy in Newark yesterday. In a classroom where 99% of the children were African American and Hispanic, from the North Ward, Central Ward of Newark, kids from the age of 9 to the age of 15 rather, kids who, if you believe some of the paddling you get from the education establishment, these are the kids who, we're spending the most money we can, we're doing the best we can, because of their circumstances, they can't learn. Their circumstances. You go into that school and watch those kids learn. Kids that go to some of the best high schools in New Jersey and America after they leave that place. Kids who are prepared and who wind up going to college. Those are the kids who are going to come back to Newark and put it back on a track towards growth and prosperity and safety. It can be done, and it's being done there at a fraction of the cost, at 2/3 the cost of what we're spending in the regular district schools in Newark. And you look at those children, and you know what the one thing that I noticed about them more than anything else yesterday, during the time I was there? They were smiling. Universally, those kids were smiling. Because when children fall behind in education, it not only affects their academic future and their professional future. To me, worse yet, it affects their self-esteem. It affects who they see in the mirror. It affects who they think they are and who they believe they can be. And when children don't have self-esteem, that's when violence comes into their lives. When children don't have self-esteem, that's when drugs come into their lives. When children don't have self-esteem, that's when teenage pregnancy comes into their lives. That's when it comes. So we're not only costing our economy great future contributors, we are costing our society in a double-edged way, both by losing their goodness and by creating in our society lost people who don't look in the mirror and see something good, but see something bad. That's what this is all about. So I care passionately about this, more passionately than I care about anything else that I'll do as governor. Because if we get this right, most of our other problems will fix themselves. And if we get this wrong, we can't fix any of our long-term systemic problems, because we won't have an educated, civil society that can bring New Jersey forward. So, watch this movie. Watch this movie. If you're a conservative Republican out there, this movie's made by Al, the guy who worked with Al Gore on Inconvenient Truth. If you're a liberal Democrat out there, this movie was made by him. I hope it gives you more credibility when you look at this thing, that this is not partisan. This is about what's right and what's wrong. And it is moving. Be prepared to be moved, be prepared to be affected. And I hope that what it will get you to do is to continue to act. And I say continue to act because I'm looking out at the faces here, and many of them I know who are already care deeply about this issue. I hope it inspires you to continue your work, continue caring about this issue, and to give you greater ammunition for those defenders of the status quo who say we're doing just fine. We're not doing just fine. And after you watch this video, you'll be convinced, I think, even more firmly of that fact. So I want to thank all of you for coming. Very, very much.